Oh, hi, everybody. Welcome to Module 3 topic. In this module, we'll discuss diversity. That's the one that we have. So a single concept for that we need to discuss for this module. Okay. Let's have a look at this. Okay. Now, at the end of Module 3, we'll have the first assessment due. That means uh, uh, on Friday, 21st of December. Okay, right. So let's briefly have a look at this topic. Okay, so this is what we mean by diversity. Okay. It refers to ways in which people in the workforce are similar to and different from one to another. So, in a simple word, it reflects workforce from different background. Okay, workforce from different background, whether the organization actually uh, assigns people or hires people from different background or not. Okay, so that's what diversity is all about. Okay, now to to discuss this further, we actually understand that diversity is probably a sensitive issue, and it is also due to the fact that we actually acknowledge that we have equal rights, and the question is how we implement it. Okay, so that is actually one of the things that we need to be aware of when it comes to the diversity discussion. Okay, and why diversity? Well, again, as the society becomes more diverse, okay, like the one in Australia, we have more and more people from different background come to the country, live in this country. Of course, it's not that difficult, I guess, to understand. So the workplaces, okay, so as a result, the workplace will become more and more diverse as well. Well, as a consequence of that, or I shouldn't use the term consequence, I guess, as a result of that, okay, because the organization will get the workforce from the society, okay, in our economic system, all right, and this raises a number of issues for managers and organizations. Well, I think we should also look at it from the bright side when it comes to issues, not necessarily something negative. Okay, so issues or opportunities, if you like, for managers and organizations. Of course, there are some challenges that we also need to manage when it comes to diversity. Okay? And the employees do not set aside their cultural values and lifestyle preferences. Okay, when they come to work, they adopt it. Okay, they bring. We as employees bring our values, bring our lifestyle, bring our preferences. Okay, to the workplace, and with that, we actually merge ourselves to the workplace, in the workplace. Okay, and you may recall that in one of the theories that we discussed, the social capital theory, we also discussed about networking. Okay, where in our networking we actually trade. Okay, something. Okay, if it is about knowledge development, we trade the information with the other people, and actually when we do that, we also look at the we also need to consider the background that people have in the when it comes to networking. Okay, it doesn't mean that we have to discriminate people. It's just the background that people have actually enrich the networking opportunities. Okay, so when we trade the information with the others, when we trade our relationship with the others, okay, if you like, we actually are involved in the in in the process where we have that we need to um, uh, consider the diversity aspect as well. Okay, and in the communication discussion, we also touch on the different background that the other parties have when we are engaged in the communication. Okay, that actually influences the how people interpret the information that we give, and we also have our own values when we interpret the information that the other people send for us. Okay, so there are some challenges and that managers and the organizations need to be aware of when it comes to operate their operations in the diversity. Okay, in the diverse organization. All right, so diversity reflects different background that we have in terms of a number of things, in terms of the ethnic background, okay, in terms of the culture, in terms of gender, in terms of disability or ability, okay, in terms of sexual orientation, in terms of the race, and also in terms of political orientation, for instance, and many other things. Okay, so they are basically part of the attributes that we actually that are inherent to ourselves. Okay, so we belong to any of those groups. Okay, we belong to any race, we belong to any gender, we belong to any of the two, any genders. Okay, and we belong to certain disability or ability background, and so on and so forth. Okay, so yes, that's they are basically personal traits that we have. Okay, they reflect the personal traits that we have, as well as the our own views. Okay, our own values. Okay, that include the political orientation. Okay, right. Now, think about this, okay? Think about this as a reflection in your organization, okay? If you select this topic for your assessment, okay? You can think about how diverse is your organization, okay? From the workforce perspective, okay? How diverse is the workforce in your organization, okay? So, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, basically. So that's one thing that you can also research. Okay, and we can also take it as kind of reflection on our own organization. Okay, right. So yeah, well, this is a bit of teaser, I guess, in terms of diversity. Okay, so what is your observation in your workplace? Okay, now this is a bit of fact. Okay, there are some facts in here. Okay, Australia has the lowest percentage of women in the management role. Okay, and one of the most gender segregated workforces in the industrialized world. Okay, so that means the jobs or the roles that people select may be influenced by the gender. Okay, and the next one is women are employed in a narrower range of industries and occupations than men. And they are also clustered lower down in the organizational hierarchy and are offered less training than men. For every dollar that men earn, women earn 83.8%. By 83.8 cents. Okay, so that means women approximately earn 17% less. Okay, for the same jobs. Okay, if you type in the Google search box, you'll be able to find some articles around different pay rates or different package that the women receive in Australia. Okay, and there is also another thing in here. Similar patterns are found in the other groups of Australians, such as migrants, older workers, and people from non-English speaking backgrounds, for instance. Okay, well, that's the one that I copied from one of the management text. Now, have a look at your own organization and reflect on that. And you can also read a number of articles published by the newspapers. They've been running campaign towards the equal equality, basically. Okay, and we also have heard, in terms of equality, number of comments, including on TV, for instance. In the sport organization, we may have few issues as well in terms of the diversity. Okay, and yeah, our TV, for instance, some people have made comment, well, we need to have a more diverse background to reflect the current Australian society, basically. Okay, we have heard that kind of comments, and yeah, it's interesting to hear your comments, basically, about that case, and because it is always something interesting for us to discuss. Okay, right. Well, Australia has the anti-discrimination legislation, and we can find it at federal and state level as well. Okay, we have, for instance, the Workplace Gender Equality Act 2012, which is basically updating the Equal Opportunity for Women in the Workplace Act 1999. Okay, and we also have Fair Work Act, for instance, 2009. Okay, and that is actually reinforcing this diversity as well. Okay, and of course we actually anchor our legislation to the Human Rights Declaration. So we have the Australian Human Rights Commission Act 2009, and Age Discrimination Act, okay, Disability Discrimination Act, and also Racial Discrimination Act. Okay, now those acts may have been updated. Basically, if you type in your Google search box, okay, to find out more about the discrimination anti-discrimination legislation. Okay. Okay. Well. That is all something that we need to. That is also interesting for us to look into. Okay. All right. Now let's have a look at the types of discrimination. We have direct discrimination, okay, in the first instance, and this type of discrimination contains two types as well. Okay, the first one is overt discrimination, where it is clear direct discrimination on the grounds of personal characteristics or personal view, okay, such as race, sex, social origin, or one of the other factors, okay, that we just discussed before, okay. And covered direct discrimination, where we have subtler and therefore more difficult to spot. Okay, for instance, if we say it is risky hiring students, for instance, for certain jobs, okay, then we actually discriminate. Okay, so we actually discriminate. All right. So how do we get around from that? Okay, well, if when it comes to hiring people, we need to consider the skills related to the jobs. Okay, we need to consider what kind of skills that the job requires. Okay, therefore the candidates that we hire should demonstrate those skills. All right. So if that's the case, then it doesn't matter whether that person is a student or whoever they are, as long as that person is available for us to work, okay, according to the timetable that we need, and also that person has got the skills and knowledge to do the job, then that's basically the one that we need to consider, okay. Now, what about if we hire, if we become a film director, okay, for argument's sake, and we say we want to shoot a new, for argument's sake, a new James Bond movie, for instance, okay, or a movie with special characters such as Nelson Mandela, for instance, okay, then we need to have a specific criteria. Okay, if we remake Nelson Mandela movie, for instance, or James Bond movie, let's say we shoot a new James Bond movie, then we have a set of specific criteria when we hire the actors. Okay, so it doesn't mean that we have discriminated people, but it is part of the the role in the movie. Okay, where it has to be, Nelson Mandela. We know that he's a president of South Africa, and we need to make sure that this person matches the characteristics of Nelson Mandela, for instance. Okay. Right. Well, of course, same thing. To James Bond movie, it's hard for us to imagine if we hire Jackie Chan, for instance, to do the job. Okay. We may find hang on a second. It may not be okay. It doesn't mean we discriminate in this instance. Okay. Right. So that's direct discrimination. Two types: overt and covert. Okay. And the next one is the indirect discrimination, where this one here is actually about the discrimination that occurs when policies or practices appear on the surface to be neutral, but actually adversely affects a particular group of people. Okay, it affects a particular group of people. Okay, well, the policies or practices appears like neutral. Okay. And unfortunately, it is that policy or practice has this advantage a certain group of people. Okay, and it is often the product of assuming that everyone is the same as the policymaker. Okay, so for instance, if we operate if we are in a certain building and we provide the information, safety information of the building only in English, then, for instance, okay, in a diverse situation, in diverse society, then we assume that everybody, can understand it. Okay, well, remember, safety is quite critical. Okay, therefore, some people may actually create I think it is a good example. If you look at toilets, for instance, they have used the symbols to show which one is men's toilet and women's toilet, for instance, okay, to have a more universal type of communication or symbol to that can be accepted by everybody. Okay. And the next one is the what we call as the systemic discrimination. Now, many organizations have actually attempted to remove the more obvious types of discrimination. Okay, and it is now actually up to the individual leaders or managers to identify and remove the nearly invisible structure or systemic discrimination. Okay, therefore, it may also be related to the culture of the organization as well. Okay, now this is long-standing direct and indirect discrimination that has been common practice. Okay, for so long in an organization or even an entire industry. Okay, now it is actually based on the established employment practices and unchallenged assumptions about people from a particular group. Okay. Okay. Now, systemic discrimination is unlike indirect discrimination that can affect only few people. The systemic discrimination affects many people. Okay, because it's embedded in the structure. Okay. Right. So that's the systemic discrimination. Okay. All right. Now, Um, the thing that we need to consider is that diversity is actually part of our life, especially in today's um, business landscape, um, where we expect to have a more and more diverse society. Okay, people come from different background. Okay, and the question for us is basically, are there any benefits if we have diversity, if we adopt diversity in our organization? Well, not there is no benefit from diversity per se. Okay, actually, the benefits come from the inclusion. That is reason why people actually have talked about moving or evolving from uh, uh, having an organization with that adopts diversity to inclusion. Okay, what inclusion means in here is briefly or simply about welcoming a diverse range of people. Okay, so include them into our organization, into our culture. Okay, um, so the question is not only about having these people in, okay, having people from diverse background in, but the challenge is now has been elevated to welcoming them, getting them to be part of the team, okay, to welcome them to be part of the team, and also to embrace us. We are basically hand in hand with these people, with the other people as well, from diverse background. So we become one team. Okay, right. So as part of the benefit, actually the inclusion offers a number of things. For instance, we scholars suggest that it will have a more intelligent organization because people have different strengths and weaknesses. We are all unique. Okay, that is the underpinning thoughts about diverse background. Okay, where we acknowledge that people are unique, we have different background, we have our strengths and weaknesses. Okay, so if we combine them, we are going to make the whole organization greater than the sum of the parts. Okay, um, as a result, we also acknowledge that as a risk management tool. Okay, because diversity attracts different perspectives. Right, they bring different knowledge, different talent, different skills, different values, right, different life experiences, okay, that help the organization to avoid group think. Okay, so what is a group think? Well, because if we are in the group think, we actually do not do the due diligence properly. We assume it is correct because the group says so. Okay, and with diverse background, we actually have people from different talents, different knowledge, different strengths, okay, different skills that can share their own views to enrich and enhance our own background, okay, our own decisions. Okay. Um, and workplace are filled with the range of people who reflect the customers and communities actually that they serve, and the stakeholders actually provide a better chance to understand the organization's different customer groups than homogeneous workplaces. Okay, so that's also the customers will also feel more welcomed because we have a group of people from the same cultural group of the customers. Okay, and it will be highly regarded as well from the customers. Okay, from the customers' perspective. All right. Okay, so that's the benefit of the diversity. In brief, the diversity alone doesn't bring anything to the organization, but practicing the inclusive workplace or the inclusive cultural values in the organization brings value to the organization. right? Because you imagine that if you feel welcome in the organization, you can also participate in the organization, and you can get involved with your colleagues and so on and so forth in the project. You share the gain as well as you share the pain when the organization is facing the challenges. Okay. All right. Now, there's an article here, and I believe your learning resources also includes a link from a different source of information. So, Adam Goody, so what do you think? What went wrong? Okay, that's part of your probably, let's take it as kind of a reflection. Okay, a number of cases that we can also read from the papers as well. Okay, and in the recent development in the Parliament House, we also know that one of the senator, got a warning that because of the dress that she wears. Well, it's something that we can also reflect on. What is the case all about, and where it's interesting for us to understand your position about that, in a discussion, in the context of discussion, okay, whether it is discriminating or it is not adhering to the dress code at the Parliament House. Okay, so quite interesting to hear your thoughts as well. Okay, all right. That's basically the main points about diversity. Okay, and as a summary, there are a few types of discriminations: direct, indirect, and systemic discrimination. And we also discussed that the benefits of diversity is nothing but welcoming people from diverse background, or the inclusion practice brings value to the organization. Okay, in terms of making a better decision. Okay, in terms of fostering people from different who have different knowledge and skills that add value to the organization. Okay, that have different insights to the organization. Okay, it also includes, it also attracts a more more support from the customers and the other stakeholders as well, when it comes to the inclusive practice of people from different from diverse background. Okay. All right, so that's basically it. And in the next session, I'd like us to discuss the assessments, and basically that's the focus of the next 3 sessions. Okay, see you.